supervolcano eruption could plunge the world into a volcanic winter. The clock is ticking on a global catastrophe. Scary, right? We've all seen these headlines. They flash across our screens, painting a picture of an apocalyptic time bomb ticking away right under America's heartland. The story goes that the Yellowstone Supervolcano is overdue for a massive eruption that could end civilization as we know it. It's a terrifying thought, one that has fueled countless disaster movies and viral articles. But what if I told you that this entire narrative, this looming specter of imminent doom, is one of the biggest and most persistent scientific myths of our time? Now let's be clear. Yellowstone is an active volcano, a very, very big one, and that in itself is incredible. But the popular idea of it being a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment, is a huge distortion of the scientific reality. The truth is far more complex, far less sensational, and honestly, a whole lot more fascinating than the doomsday headlines would have you believe. So, stick with me as we journey past the clickbait and into the real geological heart of Yellowstone to separate the volcanic facts from the explosive fiction. To understand why the imminent eruption idea is a myth, we first need to talk about what a supervolcano actually is. The term itself sounds like something out of a comic book, but it has a specific scientific meaning. It refers to a volcano that has had an eruption of magnitude 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI. This means it has ejected more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. To put that in perspective, that's enough rock and ash to bury the entire state of Texas 5 feet deep. It's an almost unimaginable amount of power. Yellowstone has had 3 of these monster eruptions in its distant past. The biggest one, the Huckleberry Ridge Tuff eruption, happened about 2.1 million years ago. Then came the Mesa Falls Tuff eruption around 1.3 million years ago. And the most recent one, the Lava Creek Tuff eruption, was about 631,000 years ago. It's this last number that gets people worried. They do some simple math. 2.1 million to 1.3 million is a gap of 800,000 years. 1.3 million to 631,000 is a gap of roughly 700,000 years. So they think since it's been over 631,000 years, we must be overdue, right? Well, that's not how volcanoes work. Nature doesn't operate on a tidy, predictable schedule like a bus or a train. These eruption cycles are just averages of a very small data set. We only have 2 intervals to look at. It's like flipping a coin twice, getting heads both times, and concluding that the coin will always land on heads. Geologic systems are incredibly complex. They're influenced by countless variables deep within the Earth's crust and mantle. Using past intervals to predict the next big eruption is, as scientists at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory say, like predicting your own lifespan based on the lifespans of your great-great-grandparents. It's just not reliable data. The volcano isn't late for an appointment. It will erupt when the geological conditions are right, not because a certain amount of time has passed. So, if it's not overdue, what is happening at Yellowstone? This is where it gets really interesting. Yellowstone is very much alive. The ground breathes, it swells and subsides. It's home to more than half of the world's geysers, including the famous Old Faithful. We see bubbling mud pots and steaming fumaroles. This is all powered by the massive magma chamber lurking beneath the surface. Scientists are monitoring this system 24/7 with an incredible array of instruments: seismometers to detect earthquakes, GPS stations to measure ground deformation, and sensors to analyze gas emissions. They have their finger on the pulse of the volcano in a way that was impossible just a few decades ago. And what is this constant monitoring telling them? Well, it's telling them that the most likely volcanic activity at Yellowstone isn't a supereruption. Not by a long shot. The most common type of eruption at Yellowstone is actually a lava flow. Since the last supereruption, 631,000 years ago, there have been about 80 of these less dramatic, but still very significant, lava flows. The most recent one was about 70,000 years ago. These eruptions are big, but they aren't the civilization-ending events of disaster movies. They typically ooze thick, slow-moving rhyolitic lava that would mostly be confined within the boundaries of Yellowstone National Park. Damaging for sure, especially to the local environment and infrastructure, but not a global catastrophe. Another more explosive possibility is a hydrothermal explosion. This happens when shallow pockets of superheated water and steam explode, creating craters. These are much more common. In fact, one created the Mary Bay crater on the edge of Yellowstone Lake about 13,000 years ago. They can be violent, flinging rocks and hot water for a couple of miles, but again, they are a local hazard, not a global one. According to the United States Geological Survey, the chance of one of these happening in any given year is much, much higher than a supereruption. So let's talk about the big one. What are the actual odds of a supereruption? What would those signs be? A supereruption doesn't just happen out of the blue. The geological forces required are immense. Scientists would expect to see dramatic and unmistakable precursors, likely over weeks, months, or even years. We're talking about intense earthquake swarms with quakes getting stronger and shallower. We'd see rapid, widespread ground uplift, not by inches but by feet or even yards, across huge areas of the caldera. And we'd see massive changes in the thermal and gas emissions. Right now the data shows, well, it shows a living, breathing, but relatively stable volcanic system. The ground goes up a bit, it goes down a bit. There are frequent small earthquake swarms. It's all just Yellowstone being Yellowstone. It's the volcano's normal state of being. But why does this myth persist? A big part of it is our human fascination with drama and our tendency to gravitate toward worst-case scenarios. The media knows this. A headline that says, "Yellowstone volcano continues normal, non-threatening geologic activity," isn't going to get any clicks. But supervolcano apocalypse imminent? That's a different story. It preys on our fears and our imagination. It's a gripping narrative, but it's a narrative that is unsupported by the scientists who spend their entire careers studying this place. The real story of Yellowstone is not one of impending doom, but of an incredible, dynamic, and vital geological system that scientists are working tirelessly to understand. It's a natural laboratory that teaches us about the immense forces that shape our planet. The monitoring at Yellowstone is one of the most sophisticated volcanic surveillance systems in the world, and it exists to provide an early warning. If things were to change, we would have a warning. We wouldn't be caught by surprise. So the next time you see a sensational headline about Yellowstone, take a deep breath. Remember that the volcano isn't on a schedule. Remember that the most likely activity is a lava flow, not a global cataclysm. And remember that an army of dedicated scientists is watching it day and night. The real spectacle of Yellowstone isn't a future explosion, but the incredible, living, breathing volcanic marvel that it is right now. We should replace our fear with fascination and appreciate this natural wonder for what it truly is, not for the disaster movie caricature it has become. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive to debunk one of the most enduring myths in modern science. If you found this interesting and want to see more content that separates science from fiction, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us continue making videos like this one. Let me know in the comments what other science myths you'd like to see us tackle. Thanks again for watching and stay curious.